Jon Jones would have beaten Daniel Cormier, especially when Daniel Cormier was heavyweight in the UFC. Where Jon Jones would have had a difficult time was Daniel Cormier as a heavyweight earlier in his career when he was fighting in Strikeforce. And people can sit there and say all they want. Daniel, back then, if there's one thing, and it's hard for Josh to even listen to me say this shit because Dan's his friend and he was a training partner and stuff. I know it's not easy, but Dan was actually pretty damn fast. Okay, he had
Kung
fast
Fu
hands.
Panda. I call him Kung Fu Panda.
Okay. And, but he was actually he's very athletic. He doesn't look it, but he is, and he's got fast hands and he had fast feet for a guy that he could really move as a heavyweight when he was in Strikeforce. And then he went to the UFC. He fought a couple times. He fought against Frank Mir. He fought against Roy Nelson as a heavyweight, but he had to move down because Kane. So he moves down, but moving down didn't do anything good for him as far as he had a lot of problems, I think, with losing the weight. It took a lot out of his performances. He lost power. He couldn't hit the same way. He had good power when he was a 238 to 42 pound heavyweight. He could smack, and he had fast hands. But as he went on in his career, he slowed down, considerably. And so when he fought John at light heavyweight, he had slowed down even from when he was a heavyweight at Strikeforce. So Jon Jones would not have had an easy time with the Daniel Cormier that fought guys like
Bigfoot Silva,
Josh Barnett, and Bigfoot Silva, those guys. He was a different heavyweight then. So I look at it, first off, it doesn't matter. They didn't fight as heavyweight. Dan is right. John, you're going to sit there and talk about the past as far as what would have been. There's no what would have been. It's what has been. Okay. You beat him as a light heavyweight, but there is this guy who's out there saying, hey, I've done everything I can to get a fight with you, and you are absolutely running away from it.
Yeah.
Tom Aspinall can say that. And, and John can sit there and say whatever he wants, but you can look at it and say, I'm not saying you're afraid of him, but you don't want that fight.
I mean, I could say ditto to everything you said. I mean, Daniel was a different person at that time in his career.
He definitely was.
He was very new in the sport. The fact that he got into that heavyweight tournament was because someone fell out.
Yeah.
He was a replacement. And then he went out there and had a damn good performance against Bigfoot Silva. And then he moved on with Barnett and then so forth. He was fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then when he got to the UFC, he only fought in the UFC until the UFC told him, hey, if you're not going to fight Kane, you need to go down and weight because we can't keep having you beat all of our number one contenders. Beat Frank Mir, beat Roy Nelson, you can't keep beating all of our guys and then not fight your boy. So you got to make the decision. And then DC's like, yeah, I can make the weight. He just knew he couldn't beat Kane. And so he had to leave. And so when he left and then Kane was kind of, in and out, not, with injuries, he was able to go ahead. And he had a conversation with Kane before he went up in the weight. They had to talk about it. The camp had to talk. The coaches had to talk. Everyone talked about it. And then DC went up. And it was good for him. Great,
yeah.
Great for him. So, it just, I don't know. I'm going to stay silent on the whole thing because, look, John is one of those guys that, like I said, he is extremely talented. You can't take it away from him. You can't, and we had this conversation, John, we even got into a little bit, like my whole doubt on him has always been like the steroid thing is you did it to yourself. We'll never know if it was really you or if it was the steroids. There's no way of changing. You can't tell me with a straight face that it was John. No one can because he was on steroids.
First off, excuse me again. This whole thing came about because of the Vitor Belfort thing.
Yes.
And I look at them completely different. I really do. And it's because
one's short and one's tall.
One's Brazilian and one's not.
Yeah, right.
The reason I say I look at it completely different, you could take a look at the UFC's Hall of Fame, okay? Because since that's what it was talking about with Belfort, you're going to take a lot of people out of that Hall of Fame because of steroids. But back when those people were doing those steroids, there was no rule against it. There was no, athletic commission saying it cannot be done. So they were doing something that, you might not like, but they weren't breaking any rules.
So Anderson Silva never tested.
Hold on. I'm not saying Anderson Silva tested positive during a time when it was not allowed.
Okay.
What I'm saying is there's a lot of people that, and I'm not going to sit here and name people off, but a lot of people that are in the UFC Hall of Fame that absolutely were roided out. Okay. But it was legal. So I'm not going to sit there and say, wow, he needs an asterisk by his name. It is different when you talk about Jon, because Jon is the same as Anderson Silva. He did it at a time when he knew it was illegal. He knew that I'm going to be tested at times, and he was trying to beat those things.
Okay, so then should we say like there's an asterisk, but with the comment next to it, like during TRT era? Like, is that? Can we just say like, hey, there's eras of, obviously every sport has an era. There was the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, TRT era. I mean, that's steroid era, as people call it.
That wasn't a TRT era. That was a steroid era.
Well, from what I understand,
and it was allowed by Major League Baseball.
Exactly.
They didn't have it in their contracts or anything that you couldn't do it. It was just almost one of those, we just don't want to know, but go ahead. If you recall, it was Mark McGuire got caught with what's called DHEA in his locker. Okay, and DHEA is something you can get from GNC. All right, it is a compound that is just one chemical unit off of steroids, so it has close to the same effect. And for a long time, you could buy it; it was legal and everything. That's what started the whole thing, because reporters looked and said, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And obviously, you look at Mark McGuire and you go, take a look at him when he was first playing baseball for the Oakland A's, and then take a look at him when he was hitting home runs for the St. Louis Cardinals. That's a different individual.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, like a lot of the Russian athletes got suspended because melatonin. And melatonin was a legal drug for the longest time, and then all of a sudden they basically, and these are things that they kids in Russia, from what I understand, they can buy it over the counter. It's like a vitamin.
Yeah.
So they buy it over the counter, and they've been taking it since they were young kids.
Yeah, because it works.
And it works for their respiratory, I guess, like their conditioning, their cardio, and it's been illegal. So now it's been on the banned substance list from VADA or whatever it is, WADA and all the other.
VADA.
WADA, all of them, whatever, all the fake ones. They pretend like they care, but they don't. Unless someone's paying them to care. But look, the Jon Jones situation, like I said, any person that has ever done steroids and that has gotten caught, or they've done it because like in the TRT era, do you put asterisks next to them saying, hey, this was during that era? Do you put that?
Here's the difference. Okay, so what do you put? Because if you're going to say Vitor Belfort, he was during the beginning time when there was no rule. Then he was doing it during the TRT. There's a difference between him doing it when he was and what Jon Jones was getting caught doing, or Anderson Silva. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So now you're going to have a double asterisk. I mean, what is it?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. As much as I like to have answers for everything, even if it's bullshit, I still don't have an answer for it.
It's one of those, it's like, again, Boss Rutan was the best one that I ever heard about talking about steroids. And he basically said, oh, you take steroids because you're weak. Up here, you're weak. You need to have that to try to beat me because you think that you have an edge when really you don't have the edge because you're weak here. And he was right.
It's pretty reasonable because everybody that I've ever known that has done steroids, at some point in time, they've got a breaking point. When it breaks bad.
Oh yeah.
They just shut down.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So yeah, I mean, I like that. That's what's weird to me is, and I wanted to correlate this also too with the Jon Jones situation, the Pico Ground situation, right around the time that he got busted for all that and then came back. But then after that, he started having bad
He's been
performances.
busted multiple times.
I understand that, but I'm saying though, with the end of the last time that we know about, okay, like he started having bad performances. The Dominic Reyes fight, the Santos fight, the Anthony Smith fight. He wasn't having great performances.
He wasn't having the dominant.
He wasn't having the dominant performances anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
So, like I said, there's always going to be a question. Whether I'm not questioning his talent, his ability. It runs in his family. Take a look. They're both in the NFL. All 2 NFL players, and
there was something in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I'm not taking it away, but there's always going to be questions.
The whole family's freaking athletic freaks.
Exactly. And so there should always be questions. Like, was he really that good? Could he have done all the things he did?
He was, though. That's the problem.
But you'll never know.
You know it. You know it.
No, I don't.
Yes,
no, John. I'm not willing to. No, I'm not lying. I'm not willing to say that. I'm not willing to say that because you don't. That's the reason. We cannot let people like that slide and say that, no, we know because he's so good, gifted. Vitor Belfort was extremely explosive. And inside the gym, he was probably the best fighter that anyone's ever seen. He got inside there when he started using, and it just became, he was either dominant or he broke. That's the reality of it. Jon Jones, different. And look at, I put, as much as I loved watching him fight, where do we put TJ Dillashaw?
Yeah,
because that's like it sounds like there was steroids involved, but
TJ Dillashaw is exactly the same thing. Here's a guy that knew at the time that he was fighting, knew every rule as far as what he was allowed to do, and he broke it with multiple things.
Because EPO that's insane. Like, for everything that I've read about it and have heard about it and talked to people about, like, that's dangerous.
Oh yeah,
extremely dangerous. Yeah. Like, you have to really know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
I can't even pronounce some of the words that he put into his body. Shit, dude. Like, what? This episode is brought to you by BetUS. Make sure you guys YouTube 150 for the promo code. Also, Element, use the link in the descriptions down below. Any product you buy from there, they will send you a bonus package of product if you use our link down below. Element's amazing, man. I love it. And I want to say thank you, man. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support us.